Hello and welcome back to the Project Hercules Diaries. In this, a tale of two starters. So I've taken the Dynastart off the bike. This Dynastart, as we saw in previous videos, was directly driven from the engine or was directly connected to the engine at all times, and the idea was to use the primary windings to start the bike and then use the secondary windings to charge the battery. Quite an elegant solution and one that is suited to slower revving engines. Unfortunately, at 900 watts of power consumption and 900 rpm, it wasn't really up to the job, as we saw, of turning the engine over. Now there is a solution that involves making a decompressor and a new head, but I think the internet has spoken and it's probably advisable to try a different starter motor first. So move over, old one. Hello, new shiny thing. So this is a starter motor. I believe it's off an Audi, a company called Electrostart in Daventry. We're very helpful. It's the same direction of rotation anti-clockwise as the Dynastart. This is 7.6 kilograms and this is 3¼ kilograms, and I've weighed those this morning on the scale, so they're verified figures. Not all of the parts of this will be used, so that'll be slightly lighter when it's finished, but it does leave us with the issue of how to charge the bike. More on that later. That's a problem for later on. Let's get it running first, okay? So this needs to be attached to the bike and it needs to be driving a sprocket. It is not designed to be span continuously. I would imagine the bearings in here or the bushes aren't really rated for that sort of thing. So I need to work out how to allow it to start the bike and then not be driven by the engine. So what's the plan, man? How are you going to do it? Right, so I'm planning to do this. This starter here has, similar to a Bendix, in the solenoid. The solenoid not only connects the high power consumption to the windings of the motor, it also pulls a little lever on a fork, and that pulls the Bendix out. So on a normal car, the flywheel will be around where the pinion wheel is here, and when the car fires, it overruns, and that on that little spiral pushes the pinion wheel out of the way. Now I could do something similar on the bike, so I could put a sprocket here with a bearing, have the sprocket running on a bearing on the outside of the bike. This is the outside of the bike as we're looking at it from the rider's position. So I need to make something with a bearing to hold the sprocket and adjust the chain with the female part of this that then the starter motor engages with. But that seems like a lot of work, and I'd need to find a mechanism as I adjust the chain, adjust the starter motor as well. Too complex. And I think that's prone to give problems. So what I'm planning to do is to take this pinion wheel off here. It's on a shaft, and the guys at Electrostart were quite informative about how that is attached to the shaft. You press it down, there's a little circuit underneath, and how to take the starter motor apart and remove the fork that actively pushes this forward when the starter motor is engaged, to engage with a normal car engine. So without that on, my intention is to press a clutch bearing on. It's a bearing where if you drive it from the centre in one direction, it picks up and the whole thing locks to start the engine. But if the outside race of the bearing is overrunning the inside race in terms of speed, it freewheels. So that means that this would not be continuously driven, or if there's a little bit of drag, it would not be continuously driven at any kind of speed. So that's what I plan to do. I need to find a mechanism to either lock this in or lock this out. So I've got to take the fork and the pull mechanism off there and just generally pull the whole thing apart. But as it has sort of robust casting mountings, it shouldn't be too difficult to mount that to the actual bike itself, where the Dynastart used to be, and to adjust the chain. So I just need to make a carrier for the outside of the clutch bearing and put the sprocket onto the carrier for the outside of the clutch bearing. I've drawn it up sort of roughly. I don't think that's too big a job to undertake, so that's what I'm going to be doing next, pulling the starter motor apart, seeing how it works. I could feasibly get rid of this altogether and just fit a much smaller duty cycle relay, because this solenoid here has got a big electromagnet in to pull the lever to shoot out the pinion gear. So there's a fair bit to think about, it's a fair bit to do, but that's the next operation for me while Mr. Bob next door sorts out the gearbox and my mate Matt does a final tweak on the gear shaft. That's what's happening at the moment. As usual, thank you for watching. More updates will follow.